I've worked in customer service long enough to know that patience is a skill, and some people exist just to test it. But one particular customer taught me that sometimes, silence isn't the answer, and the right person stepping in at the right time can make all the difference. I was 23 at the time, working part-time as a cashier at a busy grocery store. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and I liked the routine. The morning rush was always chaotic. People in suits grabbing snacks before work, parents juggling screaming kids, and those who acted like waiting 30 seconds in line was a personal insult. It was a normal Tuesday until she walked in. She looked like the type of customer everyone in retail recognizes instantly. Expensive handbag, phone glued to her ear, sunglasses still on indoors, and that unmistakable air of entitlement. She got in my line even though there were two shorter ones open. That should have been my first warning. She started unloading her cart. A ridiculous mix of items. Dozens of fancy bottled waters, several bags of frozen meals, and oddly enough 5 bottles of the same shampoo. I greeted her politely. "Good morning. Did you find everything okay?" She didn't even look up. Just waved her hand dismissively while still talking on her phone. I scanned quietly, bagging as neatly as I could. When I got to the end, I told her the total. She finally hung up and frowned. "That can't be right." I double-checked. "It's £118 and 54 pence. The shampoo's on sale, but everything else is full price." She gave me that tight smile, the kind that hides annoyance under a thin layer of fake politeness. The sign said it was half off. I knew exactly what she was talking about. The sign had said half off, but the sale ended yesterday. I pointed that out. She leaned forward and said, "Well, that's false advertising." Kept my tone calm. "I understand, but the sale ended. The system updates automatically. I can call someone to confirm if you'd like." That's when she exploded. Her voice went from quiet irritation to full-on yelling in seconds. "This is ridiculous. Do you think I'm lying? You people always do this. You put up signs to trick customers. I come here every week and this is how you treat me." Everyone in line went silent. I could feel their eyes on me, waiting to see how I'd react. I tried to de-escalate. "Ma'am, I can have the supervisor check the price if..." "No," she snapped. "You don't need to check anything. You're overcharging me and I want this fixed right now." At that point, I did what we're trained to do. I pressed the small help button under the counter to call for a manager. While we waited, she kept muttering under her breath. "Incompetent. Lazy. Can't even ring up shampoo." Her words stung, but I just smiled and kept quiet. A minute later, my manager Lydia came over. Lydia was in her 40s, calm, soft-spoken, and probably the most composed person I'd ever met. I explained the situation quickly. Lydia looked at the customer and said, "I understand you saw the sign, but that promotion ended yesterday. The price you were charged is correct." The woman scoffed. "That's not good enough. You should honor it. Every other store does. This is terrible service." Lydia didn't argue. She just nodded once and said, "All right. We'll adjust the price this time, but I'll have to remove the sale signs immediately after this transaction." The woman smirked like she'd won. "As you should." Lydia turned to me and said gently, "Go ahead and change it, please." I did. The total dropped by a few pounds. When the woman paid, she made sure to add one final insult. "Maybe next time, your employees should learn to read signs before accusing customers." I opened my mouth to respond, but Lydia beat me to it. She smiled, that calm, even smile, and said, "I'll make sure she learns something from this. Thank you for your patience." The woman didn't catch the tone beneath her words, but I did. She strutted out of the store like a queen leaving her court. I turned to Lydia. "Thanks for stepping in." She just nodded. "Go take your break." I went to the staff room, but I couldn't shake off how humiliated I felt. Everyone had seen it. I kept thinking about how small that woman made me feel. Like no matter how polite I was, it didn't matter. When I came back from break, I noticed Lydia wasn't at her desk. A few minutes later, she walked in holding one of the half-off signs, the same kind the woman had mentioned. But there was a twist. The sign didn't say, half off. It said, "Buy one get one 50% off, ends Monday." Clear as day. Lydia looked at me and said quietly, "You were right. The sale ended yesterday, and even if it hadn't, she misread the sign." I frowned. "So, she was wrong the whole time?" Lydia nodded. "Completely." I laughed a little bitterly. "Of course." She hesitated for a moment before saying, "Don't take it personally. People like that don't care about being right, they care about being seen as powerful. If you challenge that, they react like you did something unforgivable." That night, I told my sister about it. She works in retail too and immediately said, "Let me guess, middle-aged woman with sunglasses?" We both laughed. I thought that was the end of it, but the next day when I came into work, Lydia called me into the office. I assumed it was about scheduling, but she handed me a piece of paper. It was a customer feedback report. The same woman had filled it out. Her complaint said, "Cashier was rude and disrespectful. Made me feel embarrassed. Demanded to be proven wrong. Very unprofessional." I groaned. "You've got to be kidding me." Lydia sighed. "Don't worry, I already responded. I told corporate I was there, and that you were calm and professional the whole time." "Thanks," I said quietly. But then she added something that made me pause. Would you be okay if I addressed this differently? I blinked. What do you mean? She smiled faintly. Just trust me. I didn't know what she meant, but I found out soon enough. Later that week I was working another shift when the same woman showed up again. She was clearly in a rush, throwing things onto the belt. My stomach tightened. But before she could say a word to me, Lydia appeared out of nowhere. Good afternoon, Lydia said pleasantly. I'll handle this transaction. The woman seemed confused. Why? I don't mind him ringing me up. Oh, I insist, Lydia said with that same soft smile. You filed a complaint about our staff, so it's best I take care of your shopping personally. The woman looked caught off guard. I mean yes, but... Lydia just kept scanning, fast and efficient, saying nothing else. The entire time the woman stood there, awkward and red-faced. When Lydia handed her the receipt, she smiled and said, "Thank you for coming back. We always want our customers to feel comfortable." The tone was polite, but there was something sharp under it, just enough for the woman to hear what wasn't being said. The woman muttered a quick thanks and left without making eye contact. I'll never forget how satisfying that moment was. Lydia didn't raise her voice. She didn't insult her. She just handled it in a way that said, "You can't treat people like that and walk away unchallenged." That was the day I realized not all managers hide behind, "The customer is always right." Some of them actually see you. But it turns out that wasn't the end of the story, because the woman wasn't quite done making a scene. The next morning I came into work expecting a normal day. I clocked in, grabbed my till and tried to shake off the tension from the last encounter. But something felt different. There was a quiet buzz in the air, the kind that usually means someone's gossiping about something interesting. When I got to my register, one of my coworkers, Maria, leaned over and whispered, "Guess who's back?" I didn't even have to ask. "No," I said. "You're joking." Maria grinned. "Aisle 3. Same sunglasses. Same attitude." I groaned. What is she even doing here again? Maria shrugged. Apparently, she demanded to talk to the store manager this time. That got my attention. The store manager, not Lydia. See, Lydia was the floor manager, the person who handled day-to-day stuff. But the store manager, Mr. Jacobs, was higher up. He didn't usually get involved in customer drama. So whatever this woman wanted, it wasn't small. About 15 minutes later, I saw Lydia walk past with the woman trailing behind her, both heading toward the office. The woman was gesturing wildly, obviously upset. I didn't know what they were saying, but Lydia's expression was calm, unreadable. The rest of the morning went by quietly until just before lunch, Lydia called me into the break room. She closed the door and sighed. "So, apparently our friend from yesterday filed another complaint, this time to corporate." I rubbed my temples. Of course she did. What did she say this time? She claimed that you were aggressive, that you rolled your eyes, and that I intimidated her in front of other customers. I laughed in disbelief. Intimidated? Lydia, you barely raised your voice. "I know," she said. "But some people twist everything to sound like they're the victim. Unfortunately, corporate has to log every complaint formally. Which means Jacobs asked to speak with her to close it out." That was when I noticed something. Lydia didn't look stressed. She looked almost amused. I frowned. "Why do you look like you're enjoying this?" She smiled faintly. "Because I did something she wasn't expecting." Before I could ask what she meant, the break room door opened, and in walked the woman herself, followed by Mr. Jacobs. He looked serious but polite. "Would you mind joining us for a quick discussion?" I nodded, heart pounding. They sat at the table. The woman immediately crossed her arms, ready to perform. "I'm glad you're finally taking this seriously. I've been disrespected twice in this store." Mr. Jacobs gave her a neutral look. "I understand you've had a negative experience. I just want to make sure we have all sides of the story." She gestured toward me dramatically. "He accused me of lying about a sale, embarrassed me in front of everyone, and then this," she pointed at Lydia, "decided to make me feel small the next day by refusing to let him ring me up. That's harassment." Lydia stayed perfectly still. "I didn't refuse. I offered to assist you personally since you'd previously expressed discomfort with our staff serving you. That's store policy." The woman blinked, thrown off for a second. "Well, that's not how it felt." Jacobs nodded slowly. "Understood. Now before I make any decisions, I want to share something with you both." He turned his laptop around. On the screen was security footage from the register camera. The video showed the first encounter, clear as day. There I was, scanning items calmly, keeping my voice steady. And there she was, snapping, waving her hands, talking down to me, calling me incompetent. You could hear every word. Her confident expression started to falter. I was frustrated, but... Jacobs paused the video and looked at her. "I can understand frustration. But what I'm seeing here doesn't match what was written in your complaint." She went silent. He continued, "And I also reviewed the price tags you referenced. The sale ended the day before. Our signage was clear and compliant." Lydia kept her tone gentle. "So, to clarify, she said I was correct about the price. And when I adjusted it, it was a courtesy, not an obligation." The woman's cheeks turned pink. "That's not the point. The point is how I was treated. Jacobs nodded once. And from the footage it appears you were treated with patience and respect, despite your raised voice. I don't see any misconduct here. The woman opened her mouth, then closed it again. Jacobs leaned forward slightly. We take all customer concerns seriously. But filing false or exaggerated complaints about staff is also taken seriously. Especially when it's repeated behavior. You could have heard a pin drop. Her face flushed deep red. I wasn't trying to get anyone in trouble. Jacobs held up a hand. I'm sure that wasn't your intention. However, I do need to make a note in your customer account. Any further reports will require verification before we take action. The woman stared at him, stunned. Are you banning me? He shook his head. Not at all. But our employees have the right to work without being insulted or harassed. I expect that courtesy to go both ways. She stood up abruptly. I can't believe this. I'm being treated like a criminal for speaking up. Lydia stood too, still composed. You're being asked to treat staff with the same respect they showed you. The woman grabbed her purse and stormed out, muttering under her breath. When the door closed, Jacob sighed and looked at me. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. You handled yourself well. I nodded, still stunned. Thank you. He smiled faintly. You've got a good manager watching your back. Not every workplace is that lucky. Lydia just shrugged. I don't like bullies. After they left, I sat in the empty break room for a while, letting the whole thing sink in. For once, the employee wasn't the one apologizing. The customer had been held accountable, and it felt incredible. But the story didn't end there. A few days later, someone from corporate reached out to Lydia. They wanted permission to use the footage as part of a training video for handling aggressive customers. Apparently, Jacobs had sent it up the chain as an example of calm professionalism. Lydia agreed and she told me about it afterward. They're blurring your face, she said, but they're keeping your voice. You came across really well. I laughed. Great. So my angry customer moment is now company-wide entertainment. She smiled. More like company-wide proof that kindness doesn't make you weak. Weeks passed and things went back to normal, or as normal as retail gets. I thought I'd never see that woman again. But one afternoon as I was finishing my shift, she came back. This time there were no sunglasses. No phone. No arrogance. She waited in my line quietly, holding a few small items. When it was her turn, she gave me a tired smile. Hi. I hesitated. Hello. She cleared her throat. I wanted to apologize. I was going through a rough week and I took it out on you. That wasn't fair. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded slowly. Thank you. I appreciate that. She paid, took her bag and added softly, you handled it better than I would have. And then she left. When she was gone, Lydia appeared beside me, pretending to organize receipts. She smirked. Did she just apologize? Yeah, I said. I think she did. Lydia smiled, satisfied. Good. Maybe there's hope for people after all. For the first time since that entire mess began, I actually believed her. Working retail can make you cynical, but that day reminded me that standing your ground doesn't always mean fighting back. Sometimes, it means keeping your dignity and letting the right person step in when it counts. Because not every customer deserves to be right.